I love the Canon RF 50mm f1.2. It's sharp from the center to the edges, it's terrific in low light, and any chromatic aberration just isn't noticeable, although it does suffer from some heavy focus breathing. The AstrHori RF 50mm f1.4, it's a manual focus lens that sells for $259. That's a very good price point for the RF mount, and the kicker? It's a tilt-shift lens. I wanted to review the AstrHori just to see how good it is and if it's worth keeping. So, how good is it? I shot these images at the mall a few weeks back with the AstrHori RF 50mm f1.4. I was looking for some shoes and athletic gear before we got a wee bit hungry. After lunch, I picked up some groceries at Sobeys for my world-famous chili. The store was a low-light paradise. Pot lights emphasized some produce while casting shadows on others. I adjusted the f-stop between f4 and f11. When I got back, I started to pixel peep and I noticed, to no surprise, that the images weren't as sharp when I punched in. Using the sharpening tool, I was able to improve upon the results. Pixel peeping makes as much sense as using Geekbench. The AstrHori isn't as sharp as the RF 50mm f1.2, but it's not $2,300 either. The Canon RF 50mm f1.2 looks great punched in, giving you incredible detail from the center to the edges without any noticeable aberration. And that's one of the reasons why I use this lens as my go-to lens for all studio work with this channel or for doing run and gun work in low light outside. There's no denying the quality that this L series lens provides, but the purpose of this review isn't to compare these two lenses, but to show you the gap between these two lenses to help you decide if the quality of the AstrHori is good enough for your workflow, all for $2,200 less. But this is a tilt-shift lens. Move the lens to adjust which part of the image falls in focus. This is very different from depth of field, as tilting the lens causes most of the image to fall out of the plane of focus. Looking at my son here, he's standing straight up, I'm standing straight in front of him, but only his head is in focus. No matter how shallow the depth of field, his legs would not be out of focus like this. But with tilt shift, we're tilting the lens, pushing part of the frame out of focus. I'm new to tilt shift. These were my first attempts at using a tilt shift lens. They're okay, but certainly not great. At least I had a height elevation advantage. But after researching and practicing more, I certainly got better, as you can see here. The key to tilt shifting is making sure that you're at an angle away from your subject, something like 30 to 45%, not at the same elevation and not right above. You might ask, why use a tilt shift lens when you can easily accomplish the same results in post as I'm doing here? This footage was shot with an AstrHori 50mm f1.4, but I'm using Final Cut Focus Blur to provide the same tilt shift effects in post, and the results are pretty good. So why shoot with a tilt shift lens then? Well, it's like asking, why shoot black and white when you can simply convert a color photo? Well, it's a different process. It's a different creative process. The controls are different, and the standard way of thinking doesn't work when framing the scene. As with a 50mm f1.4, the AstrHori lens stands on its own as a low-cost alternative. But as a tilt-shift lens, I feel like I've gone back in time. I feel like I've been forced out of my element to rethink composition, and I love the challenge. The lens feels like a throwback to an earlier time. The control surfaces are simple, without guides to keep the novice in check. When I wanted to bring the lens back to a standard 50mm, keeping the plane in focus, it was painstaking to accomplish, and it had to be done with precision. I did find the focus ring got stuck occasionally, but easily moved it back again with a little bit of force. Using the AstrHori 50mm f1.4 tilt-shift lens is like solving one of those 2,000-piece puzzles. It does take you some time, but it provides a great sense of accomplishment and satisfaction when you're done.